Welcome back. As we discussed in our previous video with our pelvic movement, we're going to be taking that movement and adding a little bit more movement into that process. So we're going to be taking that into the spine a little bit more. So whereas we focused on all of our movement in the pelvis last video, we're now going to start taking that movement into our spine. And how we do that is we really start to accentuate and play with our imprint motion. That said, as we exhale and roll our pelvis into that imprint, we're going to find that our bum starts to come off the ground. The more harder that we try to draw that pelvis towards us, that's when we start getting the lift from the pelvis lift from the bum as well. And so once we get that bum off the ground, we can actually start incorporating our feet and our legs and our bum into that movement as well as we start to peel our spine off of the ground. So as you can notice, my pelvis is fully off of the ground now. I'm going to keep lifting my spine off of the ground, but what I want to feel is every single spot that's still on the ground is heavy. Very, very heavy. And as I keep peeling my spine off of the ground, I feel like each one of my vertebrae is coming off of the ground at a time. So the one right below it is being lifted, and then we're following that movement until I come all the way up into this nice long bridge position. From here, I'm going to take a nice inhale, spreading those ribs nice and wide. I want this rib motion up here as well. As I exhale, I start to draw the rib cages back into my body. I'm finding that upper thoracic flexion in my upper portion of my spine. As I drive my spine back into the ground, I'm keeping my hips high. I'm lowering rib cage down first. And then I'm starting to roll my spine down one vertebrae at a time. So I'm pressing down into the ground. I'm feeling my back muscles pulling me into the ground as I'm rolling my spine through every single little section, especially once I get to this pelvic roll. Notice my pelvis is still in that imprinted position. It has not gone into neutral. I don't have a lower back curve. And I'm still rolling that pelvis. Now I'm in my full imprint. My sacrum is back on the ground. My bum is back on the ground. I roll my pelvis all the way through out to that neutral position. So now I'm in neutral. I've got that lower spine curve. So again, that exercise is we're really, really focusing on that deep front line abdominal connection as we're drawing the spine up towards the ceiling. So I'm really, really pulling in my abdominals, feeling those oblique muscles, drawing that pelvis towards me, pulling those hip pointers in. As I do that, I notice that my bum starts to lift off the ground the harder that I pull into this imprint. Once my bum comes off the ground, we use the legs, we use the glutes, we press into the ground with the feet, and we continue rolling that spine off of the ground. What I'm doing is I'm placing my hand on my spine so I can find that feedback. What I want to feel is that this portion of my spine is still parallel with the floor until I get to that point where I ask it for that movement and start to lift. So from there, as you noticed, I articulated my spine. I went really, really slow through that movement because I wanted to feel my spine pulling itself off of the ground. From here, I'm in my nice long bridge position. I take that big inhale. And then I exhale. I collapse my ribs in. Not too hard, not really focusing on pulling and drawing the rib cage in together like we were doing before all of our breathing. But now I've still got that abdominal connection that I'm looking for. From here, I start pulling my upper spine into more of that flexion. So notice that this portion of my spine is curving inward. So this is where I start my movement from. My hips are still up in the air. My hips aren't dropping first. So I'll actually show what that looks like when we're dropping our pelvis first. So if we're coming down in this manner, this is not what we're looking for. I'm not getting any kind of movement through my spine. So this is where it's important to deepen this curve right here. Good exhale, as you just noticed in my voice, is very, very necessary to help in that motion. So again, hips are staying high. I'm pressing my spine down, articulating this movement. I'm getting a really good stretch of my lower back right now because my pelvis is still rolled into that imprint. And I'm pressing and pressing and pressing and pressing and pressing. And so I'm using my hands as feedback guides for my spine to feel where that motion should go. I rolled through my imprint. I am now in my neutral position. We're going to go through that motion again a couple of times. So let's go ahead and just do that exercise, and I'll let you do that with me. The full exercise, we can have our hands down by our sides, shoulders nice and relaxed. And from here, as I said, we exhale. Always exhale when we're going for those abdominal contractions and flexion of the spine. Rolling my pelvis through that imprint. Finding my bum start to raise off the ground, pressing into the ground with my feet, feeling my glutes and my hamstrings start to activate. But I'm also still focusing on that articulation, focusing on moving one vertebra at a time up in my long bridge position. From here, I take that big inhale. Exhale to collapse those ribs back in, finding that abdominal engagement. Deepening the upper thoracic portion flexion. Rolling my spine down, feeling as though my back muscles are engaging to pull me into the ground. My hips are still high until I get all the way down to the ground, keeping that strong, firm imprint, rolling through to my neutral. Let's go ahead and do that again. I'm just going to go with breathing now. So that is our exercise for the day, and what we notice and what we find is that our intention is going to be fully on looking for refined movement and refined detail into the movement that we're asking our spine to do. We're putting a lot of attention into the really, really small movements. If we find shakes, if we find where we have a lot of stiffness in that area, it's so important to slow down through that motion and really, really find that engagement, because what we're looking to do is connect that motion and that movement with the body back into the brain. We're bringing activity back into those muscles that should be controlling that action of the spine. So the slower we go, the more detail we put into this exercise, it's amazing the relief that we're going to find from our back and from our lower back especially, and just getting that movement back into our spine, recovering that shock absorption, and getting our spine into a better place for moving and going forward in our process. So I appreciate you being here with me again today, and I look forward to the next video. Thanks again. I'll talk to you later.